The second Michelle snapped and said, "If you don't like the new office rules, you're free to quit." I'd already made that decision in my head. What she didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that the algorithm she was trying to shove into the company's vault, it was already halfway patented. Under my name. Officially filed, time-stamped, and notarized. Every sleepless night, every equation scribbled in dry erase on my apartment window, every cup of coffee I ran on, it was all mine. And I wasn't about to let some failed wearable tech Barbie with a podcast and a superiority complex waltz in and steal it. But hold on. Let me back up. Before the Slack rants, before the beanbags and bathroom badge scans, before she acted like she owned the oxygen in every meeting room, I had peace. 6 years ago, I joined Nor Ellis Tech when we were barely holding on to a Series B round. I didn't give a damn about office perks or trendy branding. I was here for one thing, the models. Compression algorithms specifically. My obsession was neural net compression, tech that could cut AI training costs in half without sacrificing accuracy. In plain English, smarter AI at a fraction of the price. And that kind of thinking doesn't clock in at 9 and out at 5. It's in your DNA. So I built a team. Quiet brains. Brilliant misfits. Folks who avoided water cooler talk, but could optimize gradient descent in their sleep. We kept our heads down, the lights low, and our mouths shut. Our motto was simple. Don't demo, deliver. No press. No posts. No phony self-promotion. Just code, notebooks, and results that spoke louder than any shiny product launch ever could. The company let us be because we got things done. And in that silence, I put together the foundation of something no one saw coming. A breakthrough in compression so clean it felt like I was getting away with something. I refined the equations on my weekends, debugged at sunrise, ran every test on my own gear at home so the company couldn't lay a finger on it. Oh, and real quick, if you're into this story, hit that like button and subscribe. Takes 2 seconds, and yeah, I know everyone says that, but seriously 97% of people don't, and it helps way more than you think. Keep stories like this alive. Appreciate you. Anyway, back to the lab. I wasn't stupid. I knew the second we got close to patent-level progress, the company would start sniffing around. So I documented everything, on my own time, on my own gear, tied to a personal LLC I'd quietly registered 3 years earlier. That LLC? It was just a nothing line in Delaware system back then. Today, it's the legal firewall keeping me from a 6-figure fight. Because here's the truth. If you're building something truly disruptive inside a corporation, you'd better be ready for the moment they decide your work is worth more than you are. We were 1 week from turning in the final equations to legal when the Slack ping landed. Please welcome Michelle Stanson, our new Chief Technology Officer. Her profile pic was all teeth and jargon. Her bio? Founder of GlowLinks, where wearable wellness meets AI. Translation: she torched $40 million in VC money and left behind a graveyard of unpaid interns. But the board wanted someone visionary, and she was available, probably because she'd already burned through her last chance. Within 2 days, she booked daily all-hands meetings, scrapped our flexible hours, and rolled out a badge accountability protocol, meaning every bathroom trip got logged like we were toddlers. But that wasn't the worst of it. Then came the IP policy update. Michelle dropped the bomb in the middle of a Thursday all-hands, grinning like she was handing out free donuts, saying that from now on, all intellectual property made during company-aligned time would be retroactively claimed by the company. Retroactively. Like someone built a time-traveling lawyer just to rob you blind. I glanced at my team. Nobody said a word, but I could feel it, the heat coming off them like a server rack in mid-July. We were close and they knew it. And Michelle? She was prowling through the place like a predator that smelled blood, already picturing herself getting the credit for a crown she hadn't earned. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that I'd seen this coming a year out. I'd already done the prep. Every diagram had a date. Metadata was stripped, cleaned, and saved. I'd emailed declarations to myself and 2 different lawyers. My name, my timestamps, my prototypes. Sure, Nor Ellis paid for the overhead. But the lightning? That was mine. And the sky was already turning. She made her big entrance that Monday morning like she was walking onto a TED Talk stage. Heels echoing through the hallway, blazer so sharp it could draw blood, and this smug, I'm holier than your work ethic glow around her. Michelle Stanson. The woman who tanked a wellness startup that promised to biohack your joy and somehow torched $18 million doing it. Now she was here, introduced in a company-wide Slack post filled with buzzword salad like reinvigorate our innovation culture and infuse agile synergy across verticals. I actually coughed up my tea reading it. Her opening move? Daily 9 a.m. alignment meetings. Every single day. Because nothing screams creativity like forcing a team of engineers into a Zoom room to listen to someone butcher the word Kubernetes. Our flexible hours? Scrapped. Quiet zones? Torn apart. She slapped whiteboards in the break room with garbage slogans like move fast and breathe deep, and dumped beanbag chairs on the dev floor to encourage spontaneous collaboration. My lead data architect has scoliosis. He took one look at that setup and muttered, I'd rather write code standing in traffic. But the mood shift wasn't the real problem. She went after the core, our intellectual property. Second all hands in, she stood there with that same polished smile like she was Oprah handing out car keys. Effective immediately, she said, all chipper. Anything created using company resources, during company time, or inside company space will now be recognized as the intellectual property of Nor Ellis Tech. This includes but isn't limited to early prototypes, internal notes, white papers, and even initial brainstorming. Then she hit us with the finisher, sweet as poison. Retroactively. The room dropped 10 degrees. Like we'd all just been slapped, then asked to smile about it. I scanned the Zoom grid. Blank faces. Tight jaws. No reaction. My own hands went cold. That one word, retroactively, landed like a warning shot. A crack splitting right beneath my feet. Because here's the thing. Our team didn't make breakthroughs on a schedule. It wasn't a clean 9-to-5 gig with tidy sprint goals. Our best stuff came from midnight sparks, train ride code dumps, napkin math over dinner. And that compression algorithm Michelle was trying to sweep into her policy? That came from a year of late-night insomnia and one wild physics sabbatical. And I had the receipts to prove it. Dated notebooks, private commits, and Git logs from machines the company had never even touched. And just like that, this woman, who left a trail of failed startups and probably had a vision board labeled CEO vibes, was claiming everything we built. Retroactively. I forwarded the announcement to my IP lawyer with the subject line. So this bullshit count as theft yet? She got back to me in 3 minutes flat. Not if you stay ahead of it. Let's talk. Still, I didn't freak out. Not yet. I kept my head down and stayed focused. I watched Michelle parade through the dev floor like she was royalty on a charity visit, tossing out nonsense like ideation clusters and culture hygiene. She tore apart the entire R&D structure and rebuilt it into these little pods, each assigned a happiness liaison to track emotional energy metrics. We built a system that could shrink neural networks by 60%, and she wanted us rating our satisfaction with the break room coffee. But the pressure was real. I could feel the shift a little more each day. My team started coming to me worried. Is our work protected? Do we need her in sprint planning now? She's asking for repo access, what do I do? And it hit me they had no idea. They didn't know how close we were to having it all ripped away. They didn't know I'd already started building the emergency exit. So I told them, keep pushing the build. I'll take care of the rest. And I meant it. I got to work locking down the clean room, the legal kind, dusted off my LLC docs, backed up all non-corporate commits to triple encrypted drives, scanned and dated every napkin sketch I'd ever made. Because Michelle wasn't just here to steer the ship, she came to put her name on the hull. And the second she understood what we'd created, she tried to brand it as her own like a teenager carving initials into a tree. So when she finally asked for a meeting dropping phrases like alignment expectations and IP continuity ownership, I already knew what I was going to say. I just didn't expect to say it so soon. Michelle chose the glass conference room on purpose. You know the type, transparent walls, maximum visibility, corporate theater. She sat at the head of the table like she was holding court, hands clasped, smile already dialed to smug before I even sat down. The door clicked shut behind me. I skipped the small talk. I need clarity, I said, setting down my folder. The algorithm your new policy is trying to retroactively absorb? It was built off hours, off-site, and on hardware the company doesn't own. I've documented every commit. Every version predates your arrival. You don't own it. She didn't even look at the folder. Just smirked and casually pulled something from her bag, like she was giving me a birthday card. It was a one-page HR form. She slid it across the table with perfectly polished nails. "Then just quit," she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness. "It's not that complicated." I glanced at the paper. Voluntary resignation. Today's date already typed in. Her signature line left blank, waiting for the theater. She expected a fight. Some drama. Maybe a breakdown. She thought she had me trapped. What she didn't realize. I'd built the fire exit before she ever showed up. "Thanks for the exit plan," I said calmly, rising from my chair without even touching the form. I saw her smile falter just for a second. A tiny fracture. But enough. Then I walked out of that fishbowl, straight past the interns and badge-happy middle managers staring through the glass like they were watching the season finale of some corporate soap opera. I went straight to my office, shut the door and started packing. No rush. No panic. Just focused, steady movement. I only took what belonged to me. The notebooks I filled at home, the encrypted flash drives tied to non-company IPs, the sketches I drew on weekends with printer paper that never saw a Nor Ellis desk. The real prize was my backups. Tucked under my desk was my personal archive node. A custom-built rig that had never touched company Wi-Fi, not once. I loaded it quietly. Every clean commit, every hashed algorithm build, every rough draft schema, all labeled under my LLC. Everything properly tagged. Time-stamped. Mine. No trace of their network. No fingerprint from Michelle. Just as I packed the last folder, my lead engineer stepped in wide-eyed. "You're actually leaving?" "Dead serious," I said, not breaking stride. "If they want to mess around with intellectual property, let them try it without the guy who wrote the math." He looked stunned. "So what should we do?" I handed him a business card I hadn't given out in years. Clean black lettering. My LLC across the front. "Tell the others they can finish the build if they want. But stay ready. The real version? That's going elsewhere." On the way out, I dropped my badge into the tray at reception without saying a word. The HR rep looked up, blinking like she expected drama. I just gave her a nod and kept walking. That was the last time I'd set foot in that building. By the time Michelle figured out what had happened, I was already 10 hours deep into filings. I started with LegalZoom, then jumped straight to the USPTO portal. 3 provisional patents, 1 for each core element, the compression layer, the model pruning logic, and the adaptive feedback loop. I attached notarized timestamps, video demos recorded on my own machines, and metadata hashes pointing to external Git commits. Every signature was mine. Every file clean. She thought a one-page HR stunt would trap me. She didn't realize I'd been reinforcing the exit for over a year. She thought she'd won. She had no idea the clock was already ticking. That night, my apartment felt like a sealed vacuum. No sound, no distractions. Just 3 monitors glowing in the dark, a lukewarm gas station coffee by my elbow, and my cat stretched out on the windowsill, keeping watch like she knew something was up. I wasn't mad. Anger is messy. This was something else. This was surgical. The kind of calculated move you learn after watching corporations try to pick the meat off your bones one too many times. The first patent was locked and loaded, compression protocol version 1.3. Clean metadata. Solid hash logs. All commits tracked to my personal hardware. 6 weeks ago, I timestamped the full archive with a secure digital seal. Now, I decrypted it and uploaded everything directly to the USPTO under my LLC Oxala Systems. Delaware-based. I'm the sole managing member. Nor Ellis? Nowhere in sight. Not a single byte. Next up was the second filing, the recursive model pruning logic. I filed it under adaptive efficiency routing in large-scale neural architectures. This one was tricky. Some of the math ran close to a published academic paper from a couple years back. But I had clear evidence that my version took a different path. Their paper leaned on classic gradient averaging. Mine ditched it entirely and introduced tensor dropout with a whole new cadence. They followed the book. I rewrote the beat. I cited the equations, attached my implementation differences, and submitted the final version. The third filing, adaptive training loop optimization, was hands down my favorite. Cleanest logic. Sharpest code. And it wasn't even finished at Nor Ellis. That one came out of a caffeine-fueled weekend in Flagstaff, after the CTO stalled our funding to chase some nonsense about emotionally intuitive AI avatars. I wrote it alone in a hotel room, late at night, reruns of Jeopardy! Playing in the background, snacking on trail mix I bought from a gas station. My own MacBook. My own time. Zero corporate involvement. Michelle wasn't even a footnote. Once the patents were submitted, I moved to the next phase: protection. Legal insulation. I got in touch with my attorney, Bethany, the same one I trusted back when I was freelancing during grad school. I sent her the full paper trail. Screenshots, repo logs, email exchanges, and even that Slack thread where I'd asked legal for IP guidance and got nothing but crickets. Her reply came fast. We're solid. But let's tighten the language. Retroactive claims don't apply to out-of-scope development unless you're under specific contract. You weren't. Not even close. Then I looped in two of my old mentors, Dr. Lena Forsyth and Dr. Mikhail Resnick, both NSF reviewers. Both had seen the early bones of this project at a closed symposium last year. I didn't need them to testify, just to confirm what they already knew. I asked for brief peer witness statements with dates and summaries. They both agreed within the hour. Resnick replied with, "Glad you're finally filing. Honestly, I was wondering what took you so long." I didn't answer. Because I knew exactly what took me so long: the illusion of safety. That comforting lie we feed ourselves: do good work and the system will protect you. Michelle shattered that lie. I should probably thank her for it. Last step? Lock the door behind me. I scrubbed my home network clean. Wiped every trace of Nor Ellis. Purged cached credentials. Reset VPN access. Archived every email where I'd asked about IP rights and got brushed off or ignored. Then I compiled a full digital chain of custody file and uploaded it to my cloud vault, layered with multi-factor encryption and a deadman timer synced to my phone. If anything happened to me, the documents would hit the USPTO in a press inbox with a scheduled tweet from my old tech blog for good measure. Paranoid? Not even a little. That was prep work. Michelle wanted to own something. What she never understood is that ownership doesn't come from boardroom smiles or clever policy rollouts. Ownership comes from laying the first brick before the foundations even poured. I didn't need a badge to win. I needed clean math, clean logs, and a bulletproof trail. Now I had all three. 2 weeks after I left Nor Ellis with nothing but my notebooks and a face like stone, I got a text from Javier, one of the few left who hadn't sold out to the beanbag and buzzword brigade. Yo, something's happening. Michelle just stormed out of legal. I didn't reply. Just opened a blank document on my desktop and started taking notes. 3 hours later, the full picture came into focus. Michelle, in all her glory, had tried to push a joint provisional patent through legal on the compression protocol. She'd bundled it with a slapdash white paper, written by one of the newer engineers, someone who hadn't touched a single real line of code. The whole thing was stuffed with buzzwords like quantum adjacent optimization and hyper-efficient alignment pathways. Naturally, Michelle slapped her name on the author list. Because nothing screams leadership like stamping your initials on a formula you didn't write. But the second they hit submit, the USPTO system fired back with a red flag. Prior art detected. Application conflicts with existing provisional filing ID #67495-3X, submitted by Oxalis Systems LLC. Conflict includes codebase hashes, schema labels, and identical lead authorship tag. H. Salen. That's me. See, code doesn't lie. Hashes don't forget. And the USPTO doesn't mediate, they log facts. They saw the match, flagged the conflict, and stopped the submission before it even got past the welcome mat. That's when everything started coming apart. Because this wasn't just overlap, it was direct contradiction. Michelle had been parading around, promising the board she'd secured a new IP pipeline. But now, her supposed crown jewel was legally stamped as already belonging to someone else, me. Javier said someone in legal, probably Rob, their IP guy, started poking through the archives. That's when he found the email. Buried 6 weeks deep, flagged low priority, dumped in a folder labeled Miscellaneous Review. The subject line? Declaration of Independent Filing Intent Salen. I'd sent it straight to legal. CC'd Michelle. Thursday morning, 8:14 a.m. It was before her first policy shift, before the Slack pep talks, before the IP grab even had a name. In the body, I clearly spelled it out. My intent to file 3 components of the compression system independently, under personal development already in progress. Timestamps. Metadata trail. My LLC registration date. Everything. They ignored it. No reply. No escalation. Just silence. That silence? It had now become a screaming siren. Michelle tried to wave it off, saying the email was unauthorized and didn't follow formal routing. But the irony? The policy she personally rewrote defined official IP notice as any communication sent to legal involving ownership. She built the rule and walked straight into it. Javier said the panic hit fast. CTO's door stayed locked all afternoon. Legal pinged the board with a flagged message titled, "Urgent Clarification on IP Conflict Liability." Engineers were told to halt all development on the compression module until further notice. Michelle started ghosting her calendar. First canceled one meeting, then another, then another. Her Slack flipped to in focus mode. Translation. She was in full damage control. That night I sat alone in my apartment, staring at 3 glowing provisional confirmations, each stamped with my name, each logged and locked, each unchallenged. And for the first time in weeks I let myself smile. Not a victory grin. Just a tight, dry smirk. The kind you wear when the people who thought you were bluffing finally trip over the trap you set in plain sight. They assumed my silence meant surrender. What they never realized was, some of us don't fight with noise. We fight with records. With receipts. With foresight. We don't burn bridges. We build exit ramps and write the rules before anyone else knows there's a game. The next morning, Michelle called an emergency meeting for 8 a.m. sharp. Subject line: Urgent IP clarification, mandatory attendance. No agenda. No details. Just one of those cryptic corporate summons that makes your stomach churn before the coffee even kicks in. Javier told me the vibe in the room felt like a cross between a tax audit and a funeral. Engineers shuffled in, quiet and tense, avoiding each other's eyes. Michelle was already seated at the head of the table, hair pulled tight, face even tighter. Her laptop open in front of her, screen showing one thing: a partially redacted USPTO rejection notice. At the top of the screen, 3 words lit the fuse that blew up her entire pitch deck. Conflict. Oxalis Systems. Michelle didn't bother with greetings. No soft open. No cheesy slides or awkward team banter. Just straight fire. "I want to know," she said, each word slow and tight, her voice barely holding back the rage. How this was allowed to happen. How she wouldn't even say my name, got access to final outputs, commit histories, and filed patentable material without our oversight. Silence. She let it simmer, eyes scanning the room until they landed on a junior engineer across the table. New guy. Sharp but clearly rattled. His fists were clenched deep in his hoodie pockets. "Well," she pressed, "you worked the compression branch. You saw the commits. Did she clone it? Steal it?" He glanced around, swallowed, then quietly dropped the line that cracked the floor beneath her. "She didn't steal anything," he said. "She wrote the final commits. All of them. The pruning code, the batch loss modifier, the zero redundancy layer. Those were hers. We just built around what she gave us." Michelle's face froze, but the color drained out of her like someone had pulled a plug. She leaned back slowly, tapped a few keys on her laptop, then forced a smile so thin it could snap in a breeze. "That's not possible," she said flatly. "We own everything in the repo." That's when Rob, the in-house counsel, finally spoke. From the far end of the table, voice low and dry. He looked like he hadn't slept. Probably hadn't. He mirrored his screen to the conference projector and opened a PDF attachment that had been gathering dust in legal's inbox for weeks. Oxalis Unsold and License were under surveillance.pdf. High-res, crystal clear, and impossible to misread. My waiver. My signature. Dated. Notarized. Filed 2 full weeks before I walked. The doc laid it all out. Which parts of the code were mine, which parts were licensed separately, and which were freely available under open-source adaptations. The language was pure legal steel, tight, sharp, and airtight. Michelle stared at the screen like it had just sprouted fangs. No one dared speak. The engineers glanced at one another, barely breathing, like exhaling too loud might pull them into the crossfire. Someone finally whispered, "She filed it before the policy update." Rob nodded. "She did. Emailed it directly to us. It was logged." He paused. "We didn't follow up." Michelle leaned in, voice cracking. "So you're telling me she walked out, filed the patents, and we didn't contest a single one?" Rob looked her dead in the eye. "There was nothing to contest. Her work predates your policy. She notified us. You were CC'd. Then came the silence. Heavy. Final. Like the room itself knew it was over." Javier said that was the first time Michelle actually looked small. Not beaten, just cornered. Like it finally hit her that she hadn't been sparring with a bitter coder. She'd been outmaneuvered by someone who knew the game better than she did. And played it quiet. And the wildest part? I wasn't even there. Didn't need to be. My name was on the waiver. My code was in the hashes. My timestamp was on the filing. And my absence? That said more than 1,000 shouted words. They tried to erase me from my own work. Now they were trapped inside the very box they tried to build around me. Walls closing in, no way out, wondering how they lost before they even started. Michelle didn't fold, though. She pivoted. That same afternoon, a squeaky clean internal memo went out under her name, clarifying IP ethics and responsibilities. Tone. Honey-dipped professionalism, laced with legal undertones just sharp enough to draw blood. According to Michelle, I had willfully sidestepped standard disclosure channels and failed to offer the company a formal opportunity to license or acquire the resulting innovation prior to external filing. Translation. I betrayed the mothership. Never mind that the mothership didn't even know we existed until the USPTO fired back with a flag. Now she was painting me as some rogue genius who lit the village on fire just to watch it burn. But that narrative didn't hold up for long. Because someone in HR, bless their corporate incompetence, forgot to lock down the internal compliance threads. And buried in one of those threads was a time-stamped exchange between me and legal, dated 6 weeks before I left. In it, I laid it all out. A 14-day review window. I clearly stated that unless the company engaged in licensing talks within that period, I'd be filing under my LLC. No response. Not even a "we'll get back to you." Just silence. That thread leaked. First to a few engineers. Then it hit the R&D Slack. Then, somehow, it landed in the inbox of a board assistant. And it didn't take long before one of the big investors, Marcus Eldridge, the same guy who toured our lab in January and asked about the equations on the whiteboard, caught wind of the fallout. He joined the next weekly investor sync. Cameras on. No chit-chat. Just one question dropped like a sledgehammer in the middle of Michelle's presentation. "Is the patent even yours to license now?" Michelle tried to dance around it. Claimed the filings were under review. Said there were gray areas around shared infrastructure and contributory overlap. Marcus cut her off. "I remember those equations. From January. In a locked lab. With her name on the board. She told me then she was filing soon. So I'll ask again, do we own it? Or did you just let it walk out the door?" Silence. Michelle fumbled through her notes, looking for anything that would shift the blame. Rob from legal finally spoke, voice tight but steady. "The USPTO conflict response confirms sole authorship under Oxalis Systems LLC. There's no material evidence of corporate authorship beyond general use of workspace. She's within her rights." Marcus leaned back. "Then what the hell are we doing here?" And that was it. No formal vote. No boardroom drama. Just a shift. A collective lean away from Michelle. The tone changed. The silence hardened. They weren't buying the story anymore. They believed the math. The hashes. The timeline. They believed the truth. Michelle tried to salvage what was left with a Slack EMA later that night. Her message read, "In fast-moving innovation spaces, occasional friction is expected. We respect all contributors and remain committed to a collaborative future." Friction. She called trying to strip someone of their own work friction. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. By that point, every engineer knew what really happened. Every board member understood what they almost lost. And every investor realized the person who actually built the product they wanted to monetize wasn't even on the payroll anymore. But she had the signature. The timestamps. The legal filings. Turns out, you don't need a C-level title to be taken seriously. You just need proof. and a clock that ticks louder than the lies. 3 days after Michelle's last desperate Slack AMA, my LLC inbox pinged with a new message. Subject line: Confidential licensing inquiry. Request for call. The sender's domain? Valterite.ai, Neurelis's biggest rival in the compression space. I didn't open the email right away. Just sat there staring at the subject line, letting the irony settle in like steam from a long shower. They hadn't just seen the USPTO rejection. They'd traced every breadcrumb, metadata, filings, authorship tags. No guesswork. They knew exactly who built the engine that Neurelis had just fumbled. The message was clean, professional, and straight to the point. They wanted to talk about an exclusive license. No interest in Michelle's mess or Neurelis's drama. They weren't here for the gossip. They were here for the tech. 60% training reduction with no major accuracy loss? That wasn't just a breakthrough, it was a game changer. Attached to the email was a draft term sheet. 7 figures, plus tiered escalators depending on rollout benchmarks. I didn't respond right away. I forwarded everything to Bethany. Her reply: "We've been expecting this." Meanwhile, Neurelis was starting to come apart at the seams. The board made their move. Michelle was officially suspended pending audit. The statement came straight from legal, not PR. That's how you know it wasn't damage control for show, it was containment mode. Investors had begun asking hard questions. Internal docs were getting pulled. And once they started digging into the version control logs, the whole narrative crumbled. Every commit, logged under my name. Every schema, tagged with my ID. Every piece of the compression protocol, even the scrappy test runs, pointed back to environments that never touched a single Neurelis asset. Javier told me Michelle just sat there stone-faced, as the audit team laid out a list. File timestamps, IP addresses, repo metadata. Not one tied to company infrastructure. Even the dev test bed? Mine. I'd built it in my garage out of refurbished NVIDIA dev kits in pure spite. They didn't even own the machine it ran on. So when Neurelis's acting CEO reached out with a re-engagement request through Bethany, trying to pitch some nonsense about a co-ownership agreement and a framework for mutual IP recognition, Bethany actually laughed. Out loud. Then she sent back one line. Ownership cannot be shared when it was never yours. They pushed back. Claimed innovation was a team effort. Said I'd been salaried during development. Bethany came back with timestamps, commits logged at 2:14 a.m., sketch uploads sent from my personal Gmail on a Sunday night, repo pushes from my home IP during federal holidays. When they tried to challenge the data origins, we handed over invoices. I'd paid for the training sets out of pocket, licensed under academic exemptions tied to my own credentials. Every move they made? Blocked. Clean. Precise. Legal chess, not street fight. No press tour. No viral post. No revenge fantasy. Just consequences. Neurelis didn't just lose a patent. They lost their edge. Investor trust? Gone. Technical leadership? Shattered. The one shot they had at becoming acquisition ready just walked out the door, then signed a licensing term sheet with their biggest competitor. Michelle's final act? Javier sent me one last message. She's gone. Quiet exit. No Slack goodbye. I deleted the message. I didn't need closure. I had a licensing deal on the table, and my name etched clean into the heart of the product they once tried to take. You don't have to burn the place down to win. You just let the audit light the match. 3 months later, I stood across the street from Neurelis Tech's headquarters. Arms folded, coffee in hand, watching. Same boxy concrete, same dark glass, same nervous interns bumping into each other like caffeine-starved ducklings. But now there was a crane lifting a new banner above the doors. A new name under the old one. Sleek font. Smaller logo. Etched in brushed steel. Powered by Oxalis Systems. My LLC. Valtric had gone public with the joint venture a week earlier. Joint in branding only. The tech? Fully licensed through Oxalis. The press release was full of corporate sugar. Strategic integration. Synergistic uplift. Trailblazing innovation in AI compression. What I saw was this validation in Times New Roman 12-point font. Signed. Countersigned. I never went back inside that building. Didn't need to. My exit spoke loud enough. Michelle? Gone. No farewell post. No LinkedIn announcement. Just a disappearing act. A name wiped off the org chart, replaced with a generic placeholder. Official story? She'd moved on to pursue new opportunities. Unofficially? Legal gag order so tight she couldn't say patent over dinner. Ironic, really, the woman who tried to control every conversation left without a single word. Then came the Cleanup Act. Norellis quietly rewrote their IP policy. The same board that let Michelle bulldoze my team now issued a shiny new statement called Innovation Ownership Ethics and Policy. Clause 2 laid it out in black and white. All innovation developed outside of core-funded scope remains the sole property of its creator, unless otherwise contracted in writing. No more retroactive grabs. No more policy gymnastics. Just a cold, quiet admission folded into corporate legalese so sterile it practically apologized without ever saying the word. A few engineers reached out to me, quietly, some looking for jobs, others just wanting to say they were sorry. I didn't hold grudges, but I wasn't handing out second chances either. The ones who sat silent while Michelle drove the car off the cliff could stay with the wreckage. Inside Valtryek, we were already moving. New iterations, faster compression layers, real-time model adaptation, telemetry that tracked training loads live. And this time, my name wasn't tucked in the corner of some back-end file. It was on the patents, on the documentation, on the contracts, on the press kit. H. Salin, founder Oxalis Systems. As for me, I wasn't chasing fame. I wasn't trying to build some empire. I just wanted credit, ownership, not applause, truth, not spin. And I got it. Not by yelling, not by clashing in boardrooms, but by preparing before the clouds even gathered. I took one last sip of coffee as the banner settled into place like it had always been there. The breeze tugged at its edge. Somewhere inside, a new CTO was probably giving a speech about ethics and innovation, and all the buzzwords Michelle left in a smoking heap didn't matter. The work lived on, and so did the name beneath the patent. You don't need a badge to own the room, just the signature that came before theirs.